Okay, so we're live. All right. Hi, everyone. I am Jaeriah. I am a Canadian chapter leader for Frontend Foxes and a front-end developer and designer at Commerce.js. I also have Annie here joining me today, who is my co-chapter leader for Canada as well. Everyone say hi to Annie.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy you're here with us today.
Awesome. Yeah, we're really excited for this series episode today. We have a couple of special guests joining us for the first time for this series, so I'm excited to get right into it. I want to thank everyone for taking the time out of your weekends to join. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you're coming in from. And extra thanks, to our guests who'll be joining, and Annie as well being here with me. So for those who are joining us for the first time or have not heard of Frontend Foxes, I just want to give a bit of an intro. So it is an international nonprofit initiative that's founded in 2018 by Jen Looper. The organization promotes diversity in developer communities and creates and hosts workshops to teach front-end technologies to people who identify as women in a supportive and inclusive environment. We also manage a scholarship fund to help women attend technical conferences all around the world. So today is episode 3 of the Foxes Fireside Chat series, which is a fortnightly live stream, sort of a fireside chat discussion, roundtable panel talks that we, bring on community members or fellow chapter leaders to join in on. Conversations about new technologies, things happening in the community, and our experiences in the tech industry. So it really also serves as a platform for us to have an open interaction with the community. So there's a comment section on YouTube. Feel free to pop into that throughout the duration of the live stream. We'll try our best, Annie and myself, to be as I love that. I was just going to say, pop in the comment section, tell us where you're joining in from. And we'll try to be as interactive. But we also have a AMA section going on at the end. So that's, Annie, did you want to sort of brief over our agenda today?
Sure. We're going to have 2 guests. One guest is the creator of 100 Days of Code. We're gonna have a few questions to him, and he's gonna answer them and tell us a bit more about the community and how it could help new or already people who are already in the field to bring their skill set to a new level.
Yeah, I think it's a great pairing having 100 Days of Code as well as with Frontend Foxes here today. It's really just an open, inclusive environment. So we'll be, mainly shaping our conversation around that. So like Annie said, we're really excited to bring on these 2 guests today. So first I have Alex here.
Hi, everyone.
If you could give us a brief introduction of who you are, your background, that would be great.
So I'm a self-taught web developer. I currently work as a lead developer at Toronto startup called Jiffy On Demand. And in my spare time, I try to work on personal projects. 100 Days of Code was one of them. I guess that's it.
Awesome. And next, I have a very special guest, dear to my heart. She is my sister, who is a fellow software developer as well. So she's joining in from the West Coast as well, same as me, of course. So Ardelia, if you could give us a brief introduction, yourself and your background.
Hi, everyone. Very happy to be here today. I'm Ardelia. I also go by Dia. I'm currently a software developer at Later, and I've been there for almost 2 years now. Outside of work, my hobbies include reading, crocheting, hanging out with my dog. He's not here right now. Otherwise, I'd intro you to him. But that's it.
Yeah, you'll just see him kind of nuzzling in the corner, giving kisses and support.
Usually, in Zoom meetings, he's always there.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, this is going to be a really interesting series. So I would say let's get right to it. So throughout the panel talk, we'll be bringing in a few questions that I have here prepared. So we'll try to make it a lively conversation, and then in the end, we'll bring in whatever questions that come in the comment section. So yeah, feel free to ask any questions you have. So first up, I want to talk about, I guess, about our, well, not so much about our experiences coming in, but what has been our learning experience since joining tech. How do we go about with continuous learning, and learning new technologies, new frameworks, new domain at work, whatever it may be. So I'll pose this out to everyone. Any takers? Alex, let's start with you.
Okay.
So what has been your learning experience with coding? So it could, you could take yourself back to when you first started, or, lately maybe picking up something new.
Sure, sounds good. So when I first started, I wasn't even sure. I worked at marketing at the time, and I wasn't even sure if it's possible for someone to learn enough coding on your own without the help of a bootcamp or going to university to actually be able to land a job in tech as a developer. So I've started kind of very cautiously, trying. I've started from some books I found online. Some recommendations where to start from. I think the book was called Beginning JavaScript, and I was trying to learn using that book, and it was a very slow process, I would say. I've tried a bunch of different platforms like Academy, Team Treehouse, and I think my learning was very slow until I found FreeCodeCamp, and that was the platform that really skyrocketed my learning because it forced me to actually do the little exercises, do the little projects, as opposed to before I was just relearning the syntax of JavaScript on every platform, kind of doing the same thing. And since then, using FreeCodeCamp over time, maybe it took about 6 to 8 months of just FreeCodeCamp and those projects, I was able to land my first position in tech, and first couple of jobs were kind of very tough. And over time, as my knowledge grew, and at first it was really hard to acquire that knowledge, and that's the reason why 100 Days of Code was born, because I was trying to learn in my free time after work to actually be able to land a better position, which is more aligned with what I want to do, which was web technologies like HTML, CSS, JS, and React JS at the time, and now too.
Okay.
And then now I just, whenever I need to learn something, I pick a specific topic usually. For example, I've used 100 Days of Code about 2 or 3 years ago to learn Go, the basics of Go at first, and then it never went far until I mentioned it in one of my interviews, and turned out the company was interested in also starting to adopt Go, and there was some synergy or whatever there, and that I think helped me to land that job. So even though I didn't know enough to be a professional Go developer at the time, even learning a bit of a certain technology helps. And since then, that's what I've been doing. As I need, I just pick a topic and kind of try to time frame it into 1 or 2 months of learning, and try to get at least to the basic level of understanding of that technology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, that was a great sort of process with you coming in and learning. But it's also good to keep in mind that everyone's learning journeys are different, right? So it's great to start to get your feet wet. But yeah, I shared the resources you spoke about. I think a lot of us may have done FreeCodeCamp. It's maybe something that popped up. You're like, hey, I'm curious about learning web development to kind of come into an interactive platform, get your feet wet a little bit, start to develop right away. I think is a great way. Ardelia, can you tell us a little bit about what was your learning experience coming in, and then now I guess it's an ongoing learning process, right? In the industry that we're in. So what has been your experience?
For sure. So I'll tell you a little bit about my background and how I got into it first. So basically, I was in university in a completely different field, and some of you might be able to relate. But when I was in university, I really didn't know what I was going to do. I was coming up in my last year, and I wasn't happy with my job prospects that my degree was setting me up for. So I was feeling really lost. So I started talking to people in positions that I really admired. And I remember talking to someone, and she mentioned Lighthouse, which is a boot camp here in Vancouver, and I think they have a few other locations as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that really piqued my interest, and I started looking into it, and I found Free Code Camp as well. So then, I started practicing on there, just a little taster without fully committing to programming. So yeah, I decided to take a chance with boot camp, and I went in. It was still really hard, and there are days where I didn't know if I made the right decision, but I kept pushing. I was practicing a lot in boot camp. I was reading outside of school as well. I picked up books like Clean Code I really like and recommend, and I just kept going at it. Like Alex was talking about, doing those practice algorithms outside of your day job or outside of school really helps. Even an hour a day, that goes a long way. Yeah. And I guess right now, I'm definitely still learning. Every day I'm learning something new at work. And yeah, ways of doing so, we do a lot of code reviews at work. So that's when you read other people's code and you give your feedback. So I find that really helps, because when you're reading other people's code, you're trying to understand it yourself. You're thinking of ways that it could be improved. So that really helps you grow as a developer. Collaborating with your teammates always is such a key thing. I find that I learn a lot of my stuff from other people.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, those are all great format, and like you said, it's ongoing. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy thinking about the long journey we're gonna take on, and whatever we're learning now, the tools we're using might be obsolete in a few years. So we got to keep the wheels turning. Yeah. But I think same with Annie and I. We can relate as well. I think all of us are transitioners, and it's the leap we took might look different, but here we are. We're in the tech industry. So I really truly believe that anybody can do it, and it's such a wide, diverse community and industry. So you may want to do app development, web development, but I don't think you would know until you sort of get into it. Like Ardelia said, talk to people, and that's really good to do these informational interviews. Before I joined tech, I think I was stalking a lot of people on LinkedIn. I was cold messaging a lot of people, and Twitter. Twitter is a great community. Ardelia doesn't have Twitter. Everybody tell her to get Twitter.
No, but
that's where she needs to be.
On LinkedIn, Slack. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn and Slack. I know a lot of people do have questions about my experiences at boot camp, or how it went. I probably don't have time to talk too much about it right now, but always feel free to reach out to me afterwards.
We were all on that other side of the hard line between jumping in. So we know. Let us. I guess it sort of leads in to this, our experiences, and of course, it's without challenges, right? So, what are some common barriers, hurdles we have to jump through when learning to code or level up? I think the beginning stages are always, of course, the hardest. You're coming into this complete unknown space. The way I see it is that you kind of come into anything with a completely blurred vision, and then slowly it'll just kind of refine out, and then you start to see things more clearly. you're like, yeah, it's it's easier, and I'm not as afraid and nervous to jump in. But
yeah, you're like always like asking yourself, is it for me? Is it like, am I gonna be good at it? So it's just like this like voice in the back of like at the back of your head is always there. So like while you're trying to learn something, you're like always having this like voice, and you're like, oh, like, am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right path? Like especially for people who had like a previous education in a different field, or like worked in a different field, and you're like, like I don't know if I need to devote as much time to this thing if I'm not sure. Like I was there. I was like thinking that way, and I just like as Ardelia said, like I kept pushing because I was like, okay, like I just like I'll try. If it doesn't work, like at the end, it's okay. It's like it's my experience, and I'll make use of it in future. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. They coined that imposter syndrome. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it. And definitely.
I think it's an ongoing thing. It's kind of a feel good when you hear that from senior engineers.
Yeah. It's an ongoing thing, but I don't feel like it's imposter syndrome anymore when your attitude towards it changes. So it's not really like you still get that voice that there's so much you don't know, and that you have so far to go, but that's totally normal. When you're in this field, there's always going to be stuff that you don't know, but it's completely human to feel like intimidated by that. But it's not imposter syndrome. It comes with the job.
Yeah. It comes with then trying to hold yourself to a really high standard, but I think most of it comes from trying to compare yourself to others. Yeah, I think that's really where it stems from. I mean, it's hard. You can't say that, it's harder than it seems, because you're surrounded, like, especially, like I have a team that I work with, 2 senior engineers. I'm just like, oh my God, you guys are like the living 10Xs that I've heard about. So I'm like, oh, I was so intimidated. But, but then I'm like, hey, I'm learning so much from them. I really can't be more thankful for that. So what are some barriers and hurdles that, we all sort of have to overcome when learning, particularly learning to code or to upskill, right? So let's say, maybe I'll just open that up. Time, maybe for some people it might be time. So when you're transitioning in, we'll get into some strategies and talking about accountability. But Ardelia mentioned, I think it's good to sort of, if you're transitioning in, set yourself up with time. So even I think anything can be applicable. You want to be a runner, you want to go to the gym, you want to pick up a new skill. I think with anything, you need to try to set aside time, hold yourself accountable, do it an hour a day, 2 hours a day. Maybe time, maybe if we haven't been in school for a while, so learning might be a bit hard. But I think it's that repetitiveness that helps.
Yeah, I think also with time, sometimes we tend to accumulate commitments as we go, and without like decluttering those commitments every now and then, it's hard to find the time. But what helps is sometimes to look back and like reprioritize things. So if you had some sort of hobby and now you want to start to learn programming, maybe that hobby can go away depending on if you're still super interested in it, of course, keep it. But sometimes we decide to do something and we just do it out of, kind of necessity, or we have some friends there, or we are afraid that if we say no, that people will like think less of us and stuff like that. And obviously there's like the usual distractions that we have. Like I personally struggle a lot with like wasting a lot of time on like TV series, YouTube, all of that kind of stuff. The time that could be used for like more productive purposes. And often we say like we don't have time, where we actually do have it. We just, spend it in different ways. Sometimes we don't even notice how we spend it. Like five minutes here, 5 minutes there. You open Instagram, like 20 minutes later, you're still in Instagram. You just
realize 2 hours later,
and you forgot what you opened it for. Yeah, That's happens a lot. Like any app. I don't mean to like bash Instagram, but like Twitter, like Reddit, anything, like your drug of choice, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, making sure to carve out time for it, even if you have to get a little bit creative. So, like on your long drive somewhere, on your long commute somewhere, bring a book with you, read a few pages every day.
Yeah. Or like a tech podcast, just run it in background. If you listen to it like during the times you stop for the lights to change, still it helps.
Yeah. You don't have to sit down and just focus on this one thing for a couple hours. If you just immerse yourself in it, I feel that, that's still really helpful. You're still picking up little things here and there.
Yeah, and be mindful of focused learning and your environment. There may be certain time during the day, certain environment where you learn the best. So try to keep track of that. Yeah, I had a point. What was I going to say? Yeah, so barriers, hurdles. I guess learning from my experience, like programming was really challenging for me. I think I came from a communications design background, more like visual graphics. So coming in, I think it was fairly, no, I don't want to say simple, but maybe picking up like static coding, like of HTML, CSS, like that felt a bit more like home. But I think when it came into like actually programming, inserting logic programs into your apps, like that was really hard. But I really had to keep at it. I think it's a merriment between building something and then like what I've done, which is like it may not work for other people, is mostly trying to build with that tool, see how it works, and then go back to learning more theory about it. Then I'm like, hey, now I understand why I did what I did, or this bug was just magically fixed and I know why. So I think it's a balance between the two, building something, reading theory about it. So I mean, it's still hard for me, but like it gets easier as you go at it.
Yeah, I agree like 100% because like HTML and CSS wasn't too bad. Like it was fun and like it seemed like creative and like it of course like I didn't know all the selectors, but like I did get like the idea of adding styles to the elements. But when it came to JavaScript, I watched like thousands of videos on like on theory, basically. What are arrays? What are objects? And I'm like, I understand. But when it came to the actual thing, just like we need to do this and like write a function, I'm like, what the hell? And it was really, really tough. And like not only just like I feel like I'm like thinking that, oh, like I could do a bunch of things in my life, but like this I cannot do. And like trying to make this change from like can do to can do, it was like a really tough journey, like even like mentally to accept that, okay, it's okay to not like be good at this yet, just like try harder. What helped me were like, I think they're called code wars, where you need to solve like little tiny algorithms, and they're like they vary in difficulty. Obviously, I couldn't solve like the most like difficult ones. I started like with the most basic ones, and it really helped me to get in this like mindset. Oh, like that's how it works. That's how I should approach that. And yeah, I highly recommend it to those who start programming. Like don't take the hardest ones, they're insane. I don't know who solves them. I still cannot probably do that, but yeah, the simple ones are really good and they give you an idea of how things work.
Yeah, I totally relate to that, like having a problem in front of you and thinking like, why is it so hard to figure this out? But you just get better at getting yourself unstuck. It doesn't necessarily like come easier, but you have a better idea of where to go to get help, whether it be like reading internal docs at your company or, just Googling it, asking a more senior developer for help. And yeah, being able to debug just comes easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the first thing that becomes clear first is maybe knowing what the solution would be to take, but you might not necessarily have the tools yet, right? Like a part of our job scope is really Googling most days. So it's like, as long as you can pinpoint it, then you Google the right things and you'll find your solution, how to implement it.
And I think in development is kind of a unique field in a way that we are like they say, we're paid to be frustrated all the time. I don't know off the top of my head any other profession where you would constantly have to deal with problems that are so different and change every day, and there's no solution sometimes until somebody comes up with it, right? And in other jobs that I've worked previously in, you learn a technique or you learn a template, and you kind of run that template. If you need to learn another template, like it's been there for years, boom, just go learn it, and you do the same similar tasks using it. I guess unless it's like some nuclear physics or stuff. But in development, you'll have to get used, like especially when you're just coming to start, like you just trying to start your learning journey of code. Because of that feeling of frustration and like you said, like that haze, like that mist, you don't know how to solve a problem. Because of that, you can think like, oh, it's not for me, but that's just the field itself. It's like that all the time, and once you get used to it, then you repeat the process pretty much. That's what I found for myself. That was my kind of hurdle, like, oh, am I dumb or is this just the way it is? And it's both.
I think we ask ourselves that every day. I like that you just put it out there. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so stupid. But don't bash yourself, you know?
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. But then you learn
Exactly.
that other people are doing the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I want to keep. We've got a few more really great questions. I want to keep the ball rolling here.
Yeah, we have a question from audience. Do we leave it till the end, or?
Yeah, we'll leave it at the end. That was a really good question. I was kind of thinking, oh, that's really relatable right now, but I think it's good that we kind of just take the questions in chunk at the end. That was really, is it from Meg or from?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, we'll get. Yeah, that's a great question. Next, okay, so Alex has been talking about 100 Days of Code. I think a lot of people will be excited, to hear more about it. Alex created this hashtag. And since then it's a huge community. People are tagging this to join in on this challenge. So Alex, can you tell us a little bit about this?
Sure. I won't tell you about how it started. I'll just give a brief kind of concept of what it is. So it is a challenge where you commit to coding for at least 1 hour a day for 100 days. And you post your updates on Twitter or whatever, like maybe Instagram. And another rule that we have is that you have to encourage at least 2 other people every day that are also in the challenge. And everything else, I guess, is optional. And it fits a lot of use cases, fits every like level of experience, lifestyle, whatever you need. If you need more details after this, the website is 100daysofcode.com. But yeah, and as we go through this event, like as we continue, I'll be answering more questions if there will be any questions regarding this.
Okay.
Does it have to be like 1 hour of code a day? What if I don't have like 1 hour of code? What do I do?
So the rules are pretty flexible, and I think they started as the rules I've set for myself at a certain period of my time, so they fit that use case, but it's different for everybody. So you could do 20 minutes a day, 30 minutes a day, whatever works for you, as long as it gets you to code consistently. So developing the coding habit is the main purpose of the challenge.
Yeah, and you're encouraged to share that every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to share like your code, but you can tell, oh, today I worked on that. Today I'm learning this particular concept.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I know I've tried out this hashtag, but I could not keep it going. But I think it's more of a mental thing. It's like, oh, I missed a couple of days. I need to get back on.
Right. So another rule that we have is that you can skip days as you need to. For example, something happened or you need to go away, things like that. When you come back, just continue from the next day that would have been if you didn't take that break.
Nice. Yeah, I think the follow-up questions will really sort of just relate to, okay, so, what are some form of accountability strategies and learning or forming habits? So something like 100 days of code that would help in being accountable to yourself and
Great.
others when learning a new skill or technology. So we all have different, strategies. Like let's share some of those. And yeah, if anyone here has been a part of the 100 Days of Code challenge as well, right? We can share experiences.
Oops.
Okay, what is
I don't know what.
Oh, there we go.
I did not click anything. How did that happen? I guess it's the swipe, this mouse, and it just went back. Yeah. So I just popped off the screen. Is that what happened?
Yes.
Okay. But I was afraid that it would end the broadcast since I'm controlling it. So anyway, back to regular programming. So question. Yeah, anybody feel free to jump in.
So I can share some of my strategies. For accountability, definitely it helps if you have friends who are also trying to learn to code or are developers. Sometimes these friends are hard to get, especially when you're starting out and you are working in a different industry. So organizations like Frontend Foxes and 100 Days of Code and Learn Code Newbie, there's a lot of organizations you can find, you can join. You don't have to be super active in them even, but by just being there.
Well, right? Like FreeCodeCamp, they pretty
Well,
much.
not in 2020, but usually yes. There used to be a big source of like finding people. We used to run FreeCodeCamp Toronto here, and it was a place where I met tons of people of different backgrounds and everybody so interesting. It was so much fun just to meet these people, but definitely it helps your motivation as you continue to learn to code.
Ardelia, what are some of your strategies?
Well, for me, I think my job does a really good job at keeping me accountable. Now, I was really lucky to get on a team that cared a lot about teaching juniors how to code, and they put a lot of effort into nurturing new hires. And I feel like that's what really helped me in my career. So I feel like, my vast majority of my learning is on the job. I do have to say, though, like I feel like in tech, there is this hype around, developers always having like a voracious appetite to learning like the newest tech and always leveling up. But I must say that sometimes it's not always easy to do that outside of work. So don't feel bad if you don't really have time outside of work to do it. So like my 40 hours a week at work, I feel like I do a lot of my learning there. You're always like hunting down esoteric bugs, you're
That's how I currently feel at my job. I don't have like mental energy to learn something else. I know I should. I put this pressure on myself, but like, yeah, I still like read Twitter. I still like read new things, but like I don't like commit to like, I don't know, something big, a big project or something.
Yeah, totally. It's like, oh, you don't work on a side project over the weekend? What are you doing?
Yeah, it's definitely that. It really comes down to balance. It comes down to, we really just can't overload mentally.
Yeah.
Because I think that's going to be counterproductive, right? So once you get to this good plateau at work where you're like, okay, I feel more confident in the tools that I'm using, and you're doing your best work at work. So say it's not at work, right? So even going back to, when you're starting out to learn, if you don't have like work, maybe it's, I don't want to say it's an easier excuse to be like, hey, work is holding me accountable, but what if, for us coming in before we join the tech industry, right? Like how we're holding ourselves accountable. And And, you can think of it like, I'm working, I'm going to set aside 3 hours a day. You get into this work mode. Maybe like, this is work, I'm studying, right? So it doesn't have to be work. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, there's some comments. Yeah. So I'll pull that in the end as well. Yeah, so I guess we sort of answered this, like Alex, you sort of answered this earlier during the introduction. So,
right. Just a quick comment about it. Sometimes people think, I think because of some regional articles, that they need to work on projects when they do 100 days of code. But again, we've changed the rules to make it fit everybody's use case. And if you're just starting out, it could be like working through the initial tutorials or working through whatever program that you've decided to use, like be it Treehouse, Codecademy, Code School, whatever. And it's sometimes for more experienced developers, sometimes they choose to learn a specific technology like Go or React, or just like introduce themselves during that 100 days period. So it doesn't have to be any specific thing, but I think it helps to pick, like to make a little plan for yourself so you know what to focus on during those 100 days. And that can kind of shape up your learning so that by the end of it, you know what you worked on, like, oh, I got better at this specific technology, for example.
mm-hmm. Yeah,
Boosts
it
your
could be
confidence
different.
in the end. Yeah.
Yeah, it could be different for everybody. So it could be like following a tutorial every day, or going on Code Wars, solving some challenges.
Yeah, exactly.
Or for Frontend Foxes, initially how it started was Vue Vixen. So we mainly would provide workshops in Vue, but now we've been building out more resources in React, Svelte, perhaps. So something like that, right? If you go onto frontendfoxes.org. We've got all our workshop content, and we're going to be pushing out a lot of great React content soon. So yeah, just build small little things, right? There are a lot of ideas out there. You can see like, oh, what should I build? When I'm learning, it's always like the calculator, the to-do list. But I think that helps with sort of instilling that foundational knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I want to bring this in, actually, this one question, because it's like very much about what we're talking about right now. Do you guys prefer take-home challenges or whiteboard questions? Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, this is about interviewing in the end. I know there's another question to that, so I'll bring that in the end. But okay. So yeah, I have this one other main question. So what do we think are the benefits of being part of a community like 100 Days of Code and Frontend Foxes? Or any other tech communities that are out there when you're in the industry or before joining the industry?
I feel like it's the great amount of support you're getting by those groups, because when like a person starts to code, and it's usually like especially when it's like the second career, you're not at the university, you don't have like pals like right there in your group. You're like usually you're like alone, and you feel alone until you find some group that can give you this support and encouragement and answer some of your questions and just like be there for you. And I think like that's the most like powerful thing you can have as a new developer, or like as a person who is like trying to transition to tech. I feel like that's like very, very important to have supporting community of like-minded people.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the fastest way to really get better at what you do is just surrounding yourselves with people that are professionals in that skill set.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Alex, do you say before 100 Days of Code, were you part of any communities?
Free Code Camp, I think.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know that there was an actual community. Well, I guess, yeah, like online?
Yeah,
to
there's city chapters in
forums?
some cities.
Okay.
And yeah, I think now it's kind of died down because there's so many. First of all, 2020, and
Yeah.
there's so many other communities that have popped up. But before, yeah, it was kind of like the Wild West out there, and it was hard to find communities.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So for Frontend Foxes, like I don't know if I mentioned, but Ardelia, my sister, she recently joined Frontend Foxes. So it's it's a completely open, inclusive, of course, for women and for people who identify as women. To be a part of this, we've got a great Slack community with all the channels. If you're coming in to ask for help, maybe you've had a bad day, you just need a community to kind of be like, oh, this happened at work. Yeah, please join us. If you go on this website, there'll be a Slack link at the footer. Yeah, we're really excited to expand this community. Annie and I just joined. I think for me it was late last year, early this year, and yeah, it's been great. So I encourage that. Ardelia, yeah, she had let me know that she was going to have to jump off soon. So I'm wondering if you have any last leading thoughts. Anybody's got any questions for Ardelia? Otherwise, you can get in touch with her as well. But Dia, do you have any last leading thoughts?
No, I was just really happy to be a part of this. Thank you so much for having me on today. This is kind of my first step in really dipping my toes in the community. I know the first couple of years I've really been dedicated to my job, and now I'm trying to push myself to get to know other people in the field. So yeah, this has been really great.
Yeah, I mean, you have a community there as well, right? Even before you got in to your company right now, you had your bootcamp community, right? So,
yeah, they're great people that I'm still friends with today, and also I'm really lucky that my company is my community. I have really supportive teammates. So
yeah, awesome. Okay, should we all say bye to Ardelia? She's going to jump off, and then we'll probably get to the amazing questions that have trickled in.
Thanks so much for coming, Ardelia.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah. See you later. Bye.
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 Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Michelle, who's in the Frontend Foxes community, she's one of the early founders as well. She used to run these pair programming sessions as part of Frontend Foxes. Really, it is what it is with pair programming. So we would, anybody should open up these sessions in a Zoom meeting. Anybody wants to jump in and tackle a problem together, synchronously in real time. That helps. Usually in person, you would have like one person who drives, one person who the driver and the what?
I don't know the navigator.
Yeah.
I don't remember the terminology.
Yeah. So I always the driver. So the driver will be whoever I don't know what that term is. Maybe initiator. I don't know, but you're the one talking through the logic, and then the driver. No, the driver is the one talking through the logic, and then anyway, then whoever else is typing it out. Okay. Yeah, so I'd say there are some really great questions that came in. I would like to maybe get to those. So first question, I can pull this in.
Yep.
Hi, after your learning, how did you approach the job market and prepare for interviews? Did you build a portfolio? What suggestions do you have to best prepare for technical interviews? Yeah, we can all sort of take this.
Yeah, so I can probably start. Like for me, since I did bootcamp, we already had like a portfolio by the end of bootcamp. We kind of were like forced to build a portfolio of various projects. So this was like covered and was like deployed, and I had, I still have my website with like all the projects. So this was something like I would submit with my resume. what suggestions do I have? Like, I think we briefly discussed it like on our first episode.
Yeah.
Just apply. Like, especially with the bigger cities, it's I'm from Russia, from a smaller city, so like finding a job there was not like a big problem because there are like several companies you can apply to, you want to apply to, and like they would probably respond. Like, but like living in Toronto, having so many companies around, and like so many people are applying, so there's like a competition, obviously. So just make sure your like resume looks good. It's not like too big. It's like preferably like 1 page. If you have like a lot of experience, it can be like 2 pages, obviously. But yeah, just like apply. Try your best. Prepare for your interviews when you're like invited. In my personal experience, this is like the lesson learned. Apply to the companies you would want to work for, because you're also interviewing them. You want to make sure that like when you receive that offer, you'll be happy. It's not like only about the money. It's about the atmosphere a company creates. And if you don't feel like you belong there, it's gonna be like such a pain to work there. And yeah, like I had not very good experiences with that. So this was like my criteria when like I applied. Am I happy? Will I be happy if they give me an offer? That would be like, if I answered yes, like I would apply.
Yeah, it's not necessarily really about that. Okay, in some sense, there's that sort of culture fit question, right? But at the same time, you need to give yourself that time. So maybe like a month in, 2 months in, you're like, yeah, this is not a great fit. Don't be afraid to, especially if you've got a goal set out that you're like, I want to be able to level up within a year. And if you don't see, and if you've kind of communicated that you don't see that could be an environment that you could do that, this is about your learning journey, right? And it's about your experiences.
Right. I also have some thoughts on this to share. Just because my experience is a bit different, not having this portfolio. So what helped is FreeCode Camp had this project section that I was working through learning, and it definitely helped that they had those projects live on, I think it was on CodePen. But when coming to the interview, you always want to have these projects that you've built before, for a reason that if you don't, they'll ask you more questions, more technical questions, and they'll be like, in general, I guess, not as enthusiastic as if you had a project that you could show, and they would ask you exact like question, oh, how did you build this? And because you just built it. And that definitely helps the interview go into the right way. For applications in the first interviews, as Annie said, definitely apply as much as you can, but when you get to those interviews, don't judge the interview process for a tech job by one company's interview style, because companies don't really know how to interview. A lot of companies just wing it, and you can accidentally happen to get to an interview where they just don't know what they're doing, and you'll think, oh, I'm not ready. But some other company will have an interview process that focuses more on like what you worked on and be more open to you. And I've heard, and I know Annie had an experience where the company invited her for an interview, and they just opened their production code with a bug in it, and they're like, fix this bug.
And it was what React and like Redux Saga, and I was like,
wow.
What is that? And like my hands were shaking, and I was like, so like the stress of the interview plus this like unknown code, it just like it made me feel like so helpless. It was not good. It was like my first tech interview ever. That's like it was like so challenging for me to go back to like interviewing with other people, other companies.
So I suggest interview a lot.
I've heard of it's a skill in itself, right? Especially if I've heard of people who have gone through like 50 hundreds of interviews. I think this was always sort of the horrifying aspect when I first started. So from my experience, So I had to go back to school. I went to British Columbia of Tech Institute. I always call it BCIT, so it's like British. So BCIT, so it's a web development program too as well. So I went through that. I had a bit of like CSS and HTML experience before coming in, but I realized that I needed that. Yeah, see, it's that accountability factor, be able to like go into school every day. And in the end, I think for most programs, you would come up with a portfolio. So for me, I sort of had this plan where I'm like, okay, I'm going to give myself a month to do my due diligence and doing all the research with these companies. So it was really just like there were no filters in my research at first, right? I'm just like, whatever is available. But slowly, I think my list just kind of kept honing down. So I was very sure of the fact that, I didn't, and it came along with, looking up current employees or past employees, cold messaging them. So I cold message a lot of employees with these companies. Like, I think I've honed it down to maybe like 10 on the list. I'm like, okay, yeah. So this is a plan that I think, is good to go with. So I stuck it down to 10. Then I did complete quality applications for all of those. And in terms of resume, I think it's sort of different now. It's like a bit reject. Like everything now is like through LinkedIn, Twitter even. I've heard of people who get jobs on Twitter. GitHub, before, if you try to learn GitHub, but especially GitHub, if you're building all these projects, don't just have it locally, sign up for a free GitHub account, push it up. So, you may be a complete beginner, but when you start to apply, you can send the company that code.
Yeah.
So
GitHub link, then like the way it works, and it's gonna be easier for you when you join the company. For sure.
Yeah. It also protects you from the surprises when like your hardware fails, because that can also happen. Like your hard drive fails, and this like where are your projects? So definitely agree with you. Save early, save often, and the bonus of saving to GitHub, now everybody can see your coding.
Yeah. So that's one step, and if you take it a bit further, it's really looking into open source projects, right? So even if you're not building your own projects, like start to look. We're still in Hacktoberfest, and we did our last episode was on Hacktoberfest. Look up open source projects, contribute to them, and those would be employers will be able to see the contributions you're making, the things you're doing to come into tech. I don't think portfolios are necessary.
No, they're not.
Not necessary.
Web development, but it's all dependent. So most of the time when you see like applications or like the description in the job posting, a lot of it would be like your GitHub handle.
Yeah.
Maybe some projects that you've built, but they don't necessarily have to live in like an index, page, right? What suggestions do you have? So for me, as part of like my research, I think I was really avoiding I think I completely try to avoid any companies that would do these really harsh tech interviews with whiteboarding. I think it's kind of moved leaps and bounds. Like most
just the word, whiteboarding. Oh my god!
Why? I did a take-home test, but mine was a hybrid role, so it was sort of a developer designer role. Initially, I applied for a designer role, but knowing that I wanted to eventually transition to web development. But I love my company. I'm so happy to be there. They pretty much saw the potential in me. I was hungry. I wanted to learn. And they're like, we want to open up a junior front-end developer role for you, and that was never even posted. So don't be afraid to do that. So you might not see postings that are up live, but reach out and ask. So not all postings are live. Like ask through connections. Like, hey, are you hiring at your company? And you get that internal reference, right? Or referral, sorry.
Yeah, and I see we have like a question about the whiteboarding, and I feel like it's, I wouldn't say like a big red flag, but like it's a big red flag for me when they like, you are in the position when you are like in front of people but also there is a board, and you need to like.
And this is not reality. This is not the environment
Exactly.
that we're coming into. Yeah.
It doesn't show the skills. You're like, if you're like me, like I'm crazy, like worried about like all the tests and like when like the situation where I need to stand like in front of people and like perform some things on the fly. Like it just like my mind goes like blank. Like I just like I stop thinking and I just like I freeze. And I know that like maybe for some people it's not a big deal, but like for me, I would like even if I knew how to like solve this problem, I wouldn't be able to like show it and like write it down on the whiteboard because like of the pressure of the whole situation.
I think that I hope, well, because of 2020 and because of everything's kind of moved remotely, I hope that will never come back. I'm not sure if companies are still running in-person tech interviews, but I think in place of this, I know that you might go through like a recruiter stage, and you might meet with like a teammate that they're someone from the team that you might potentially be joining. They would just send you these challenges. I think most of them are through online platforms that would have these interview questions. Not great as well, but you would be sent those questions and you have to finish them. I don't know, in like 20 minutes, an hour. But going back to what Annie was saying about fixing that bug, see, it's like I think some companies are trying to move towards that. Get into our code base. They may show you something deliberately that has a bug, and they might. Might not be that you would solve it, but it's your thinking process, so practice talking through like, oh, I'm not sure why, but, maybe we could take this move, things like that, right? So yeah, for me, I just completely avoided this. And how I know is by reaching out to employees and asking them about these interview processes, but not everybody would have that option to, be choosy about this, but there's so many opportunities out there.
Not everyone will be like straightforward with like what would be at the interview, because that first interview I had, the one with like with this code that I needed to solve their like issue and find a bug, they wouldn't like tell me what the how the interview goes like normally at their company. They're just like, oh, like it's gonna be like get to know you thing. So like I wasn't expecting this at all, and it was like a 3-hour interview with like getting to know me, and then like business questions, and then like this whole Redux saga type of thing. And like I see the questions from Kim. She probably it's a question for me, like how you handle, or like maybe it's a question for everyone. But I didn't handle the situation very well because I was like I felt like I was going to cry, and I said, hey, like thank you so much for inviting me here, but I feel like I'm wasting your time because I'm obviously not at the level you want me to be. And I said like bye, and they were like understanding, and I just like I felt like I was so emotional at that time, so I didn't know how to handle it better. But now I would like at least try and like explain my thoughts. But since I didn't have any thoughts, I couldn't explain anything. So yeah, I didn't handle it well. I think I would do better if like I was in the same situation now, knowing what I know now. But at that time, it was like
but you wouldn't be, right?
No,
it wouldn't be. But I think all of us have gone through that. Like I think I would go through that same experience if I had gone through like what was typical, I guess, interview process. I don't know. I don't know how that came about. Like, well, that trickled down from like the big five, but it's like most people just can't do well in pressurized situations like that. And that's, unless you're like a senior engineer and it's like this bug that just like completely came in and tripped up your whole system, then you have to fix it under pressure. But I don't think anybody coming in should have to handle
even
that.
Super senior people I've worked with, I've talked to my mentor about it, and the way he even he at his level, which is like way beyond mine ever, like for now at least, he has to spend like a couple of months preparing for those type of interviews before he starts like his actual process. So it's not good for anybody, pretty much, at any level. And having the interview process be one thing and the job being another thing, I've never seen any industry where it would be that difference, like that level of disconnect between the two. So yeah, try to find reasonable companies, and then when you feel like it, when you feel like you want to take on a challenge while already working in a good company, maybe take some time to learn those algorithms and try, like maybe Amazon or whatever. Some people are interested in bigger companies, and that's what I guess you'll have to deal with more in those type of things. But even they, I think, are moving away from those type of interviews. Jaeriah, I think you're muted.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, forget about my point. But anyway, what was I saying? I wasn't saying anything important. Yeah, Michelle on our comment section really, I encourage anyone who's viewing to join our Slack community. I think for me, I'm part of a small team and a small startup, but I think wanting to join a part of a community to really just kind of go outside of that scope and see what else I can learn from people out there. So I'm happy to be part of Frontend Foxes. Let me see if we missed any questions. Yeah. No. Adding to what Annie was saying about not handling, I think you shouldn't be afraid to say you don't know. And even if it means to just end I think that takes a lot of courage, Annie, to just be like, hey, I can't do this, and this doesn't feel right, and I'm wasting your guys' time. I think that takes a lot of courage, and I think we shouldn't be afraid to do that, or be like, I don't know.
Because like I had either this or I would like cry right there in front of all of people.
I think I would.
So I decided to cry like on the entrance. When I entered, I was like, I felt sorry for myself. But
no, I think it came from that mostly, right? It's just like, why don't I know this? Like I bashed this interview, but that's a first-time experience. I think, we can't be too hard on ourselves. Give ourselves grace when we're learning and starting to come in. I think it's been a really great discussion. I think if there are not any other questions, we might wrap it up soon. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. So feel free to join our Slack, our Twitter handle. I want to share I want to make sure I have other resources. So Alex, there's a website, right? 100daysofcode.com.
.com, yep.
.com, okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so 100 Days of Code. If you're keen on being a part of the challenge, and I think it's great. It's it's kind of like having someone, just not someone, but creating your own inner circle would be like having that support network. What else? Our Twitter handle, Frontend Foxes. I've tried to share most of the resources that we spoke about, like books and Twitter handle. And tweet at us. Let us know what you thought of today's session. Any ideas of topics you would like to see in upcoming episodes. Let us know on Twitter or on Slack. Any last thoughts, you guys? Reach out to us,
feel free to reach out to us on Twitter, on LinkedIn, anywhere. We'll be happy to help if we can with anything. Join Frontend Foxes Slack channel. Join those pair programming sessions. It could be a great opportunity to have someone to hold your hand, just like help them like think through the process with you. And yeah, these are great opportunities. And yeah,
I really don't know if I can say for any other industries that you just have such an inclusive environment where everybody is just willing to help. So I think it has to come from within. You have to be the one to kind of step outside of that comfort zone. Like I hate asking questions, but it's part of it. It's part of the job. You need to be open and asking questions. Not be afraid to say that. Oh, you don't know this. That's the first step you'll take to learn. Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think we should wrap it up here. Thank you, everyone. Say bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, and stay tuned for upcoming episodes. Yeah, let us know what you want to hear. Okay. Bye.